Hello you guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to separate your snake plants. I have a whalefin Sansevieria variety that produced a baby, which I'm so excited about, but I kind of want to separate it simply so that it has more room in the container, because this is only about a 6-inch, and so I'm afraid it will become too root bound and won't be able to produce any more. Plus it'd be nice just to have a whole bunch around the house. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alrighty, so these are the different containers that I'm going to use for each of the new snake plants. Since this gray one has a larger drainage hole, I'm actually going to add a bit of screen to the bottom just to make sure some of the soil doesn't go out. This can also be a good practice simply because people believe that it can also decrease the risk of pests coming in through the drainage hole. Whether or not that's actually true, I'm not sure. Here I'm showing you a tiny little shovel because if you're using a ceramic pot, or if the plant is already in a ceramic pot, you might have to use a mini shovel to kind of loosen the edges. But if it is in a plastic container like my plant is, then you can get away with kind of shimmying out the plant, kind of squeezing the sides of it to loosen it like the root ball a little bit. You do want to make sure that you're gentle when extracting the plant from any container, just to make sure that you're not dislodging any of the roots. That would be very bad. Because this plant is fairly new, and as you can tell, the soil is still very rich in its nutrients, there's a lot of really good stuff going on to it, I decided not to throw out the soil and simply reuse a portion of it, as well as add new fresh soil to that mix. You don't have to do that. You can throw out all the soil, and I suggest you do throw out all the soil, especially if this is an older plant, because the chances are that there's just no good stuff in there anymore. And plants like good stuff. If you are going to be using a brand new soil, I highly suggest that if you are not mixing your own, in the very least that you use a cactus mix soil, or at least something that says it's extremely well draining. Snake plants do not like moisture retaining soil. It will cause root rot. And at least in my experience, when your snake plant gets root rot, you essentially have no choice other than to, well, cut it off where it's not rotting anymore and try and repropagate it, essentially. Alright, well, now that I'm taking a shear to my plant, I should probably start to describe what I'm doing. When you propagate a snake plant like this, you want to make sure two things first of all. You really want to dust off as much dirt as possible from both the roots and the rhizome. The main goal of doing this is simply so that you can clearly see the rhizome, which is the part that I recently just cut in half with my shears. I do suggest you use shears better than the ones that I was using, however, I don't currently have better shears than the one I was using. That's the best I got right now, so hopefully you have something better. And by better, I mean sharper and more suited to cut actual plants. So once you've gone ahead and cleaned off the roots and the rhizome, you want to make sure that the rhizome has at least 1 to 3 roots coming out of it near its new plant leaf, its new mother plant essentially. So you can tell the one that I'm holding right now has a lot of roots on its rhizome. And for people who don't know, the rhizome is kind of like that carrot, dense looking thing that's quite large and bulbous. If there are no roots on the rhizome, do not cut it. It will not survive. It needs the roots on the rhizome in order to bring up the nutrients. So if that is the case for you, make sure to stick that plant back into the soil because it is not ready to be propagated or separated. However, mine was, so I went ahead to add some extra soil sort of at the base of the plant just to make sure that it was high enough in the pot. You may also notice that I'm using a natural clay terracotta pot, which is really good, especially for a snake plant, because it allows the soil to dry speedier than if it was, say, a glazed ceramic pot or a plastic container, which again is really good because, as I reiterate, snake plants do not like moist soil. They like it dry like the Saharas, honey. Usually I create my own soil mix, however today, as you can see, thanks to Ryan's wonderful soil placement, I am using a pre-mixed soil mix. I'm sorry, I mean a pre-mixed cactus mix soil. Boom, there we go. If you are mixing your own soil, it can be sandy or it can be pebbly. The main thing that you want is that it is well draining. Here I'm adding some extra perlite because I just kind of felt like even though it was a cactus mix, it wasn't, well, it just wasn't looking particularly light and fluffy or aerated. Sometimes I feel like that happens, especially when you get like the house plant mix or like the potted plant ones, like the general ones. I feel like those are so dense and moisture retaining, it's almost like a kiss of death for some plants. Long story short, it's good to have some soil looseners, I guess, on hand as well as potting mix, just so you can kind of scope it out and add it as needed. And when I'm saying soil looseners, I mean something like sand or like perlite, or even I've used tiny little granite granules in the past, like little pebbles. I also want to note that when you do cut the rhizome, it is suggested that you let it air out and scab over. I'm going to let it do that process in the soil, so because of that, I will not be watering it right away. And there we go. So that is how you can separate your Sansevieria plants. This is the whalefin one that I just separated. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure to give it a good old thumbs up so that I know that you liked it, so I can make more videos like this. And if you aren't already, feel free to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future videos that I make.